everyone.
Hi, Donna.
Andre, I saw you riding your bike to work this morning.
Yes, that could have been me every morning.
No. It was you. It was definitely you.
Did I go through any red lights or stop sign?
No. You were riding, and I was sort of trying to wave at you, but you had like this intense look of I got somewhere to go, and so I just carried on my way in my car.
My morning ride is a no sweat ride, so I couldn't have been that intense because I try not to pedal so hard that I sorry.
No worries.
Yeah. Anyways, that's good. So, yeah, and I rode in the rain yesterday.
Oh, not the 4 o'clock rain.
Yes, I did. Yeah, right in it. But my mother told me when I was little that I wasn't made out of sugar, so I won't melt. And you know what? Yeah. I haven't melted yet.
That was quite the storm, and unfortunately, I saw that some people had some damage from that, especially on St. Joe's, and that was
yeah, for sure. There was a lot of lightning. Yeah. So I'm gonna try to change the view here. Okay.
Emily, hello. Have we got and Robin? We've got a quorum, I believe, at this point. Yes.
Yes, we do.
Thank you, Robin.
I was on mute. I did say yes too.
It's okay. I think it's one of those days. I just think that. All right.
Donna, the only people we're waiting on who did confirm are Fred and Bosna.
Okay. We'll just give it a couple of minutes and see if they join. Well, I'll just wait for a couple of minutes or maybe one. We'll take it from there. Just looking at my list here that thank you very much, Robin, for sending, so I know who is. I see that. Okay, we're looking good here. I'll just wait till 4:04, and if at 4:04 we have no further new folks connecting, we'll get started. All right, it's 4:04. So we'll proceed. And if we could call this meeting to order. Thank you very much, everyone, for making the time to be here today. I do note that we have a couple of members here today from the public and from the media, and thank you for joining us. I see David Helwig is here. Thank you, David. We appreciate you sharing with the public what's going on in our meeting. And additionally, I see that Margot Dale is here to listen. Thank you, Margot, for joining us. All right, so I am looking for an adoption of the minutes from our previous meeting of July 8th, 2021. And if I could ask to have a mover and a seconder for the adoption of those minutes. Just need a couple of hands. Thank you, Andre, to move, Jamie to second. And anyone with questions, concerns, additions, deletions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Yes, thank you very much. If you could just indicate your approval. Thank you, Bhavna, for that. And those are carried. Does anyone have any declaration of pecuniary interest on anything on our agenda today? Seeing none, that would be no declarations of pecuniary interest. I'm looking now on our agenda item number 4, looking for adoption of today's agenda, which you have in front of you, looking for someone to move and second approval of today's agenda. Thank you, Mark. And I just need someone who would kindly second that. Pedro, thank you very much. Any additions or changes? And seeing none, all those in favor of approving today's agenda? And that would be carried. Thank you very much. Moving on. The next item on our agenda, Emily, sorry, I'm bouncing between screens here, so I'm just trying to make sure that I don't miss anything. Emily has a significant update for us, which on our corporate greenhouse gas reduction initiatives, and she's looking to share a number of pieces of information with you, along with generating any ideas or questions or other dialogue that we could have around that. We have about 20 minutes for this particular agenda item, and let's move ahead. Emily, please go ahead.
Thanks, Donna. I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen here. Oops. All right, can everyone see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So as per Donna's introduction there, I'm going to provide you an update on the Sault Ste. Marie Community Greenhouse Gas Reduction Plan, which also touches upon not only corporate actions, but community work that we're doing within the community as well. So just as a reminder, the Ghg Reduction Plan was unanimously approved by City Council on December 14th, 2020. And these actions are based on both community and corporate, so municipal efforts. And there have been a series of priorities written out in the plan, both short and long term, but also some priorities for year one. So that's been a bit of my focus over the past month or so. And the plan focuses on the major sources and drivers of emissions. So specifically looking at the areas of buildings and energy, transportation and waste, but it also looks for opportunities in the green space, economic development and municipal leadership. So just wanted to, quick reminder on the plan. So when we take a look at the plan, some of the current priorities that we've been working on, the first piece was doing a bit of a deep dive into the project management side. So what I've done is I have established a project tracker, basically taken the plan and put it into a project to just track our progress. So has the action been started? What are the KPIs? Notes for next steps, etc. And so this will be utilized to provide an annual summary on the plan implementation progress. So when we look at the buildings and energy on the corporate side, one of the priorities that I've been working on in the past month or so is I organized 3 energy opportunity walkthroughs at 3 of the city's facilities. So we went to the Old Stone House, the landfill, as well as the GFL, and we worked with the IESO's Northern Ontario Energy Conservation Representative to look for energy opportunities under their Retrofit incentive program. In addition to this, I am working on the city's broader public service energy reporting, where we report annually our corporate emissions and energy consumption. So this is a little bit delayed, but hoping to have that done by September. On the community side, I'm looking to, this aligns with one of those top 10 priorities for year one that I spoke to about the plan. I am doing some research on exploring how we can go about the possibility of establishing a community retrofit program. And there's a considerable amount of money available right now from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities to go about looking into the feasibility of doing something like this in a community, doing a deeper dive into how that program would look, and also implementation. There's been a lot of reports that have come out in the past and also recently that really push to retrofits as being a big piece of our climate action. So it's interesting to look into this funding for Sault Ste. Marie. I'm also working on some energy efficiency incentive education and awareness initiatives, again, in alignment with the Ghg Reduction Plan. Specifically, we are going to be hosting a 5 days of energy literacy social media campaign set to launch in September, where we'll be promoting on the city social media different energy efficiency incentive programs out there. As well, I'm very pleased to say that we are partnering with Garden River First Nation to host a series of 4 energy literacy webinars into the autumn as well. And so here we'll be looking at some webinars that talk about looking at Ontario's energy system, how energy works at home and the efficiency opportunities there, and bringing in some guest speakers to talk to the incentive programs, both on a residential and commercial level. In addition to some of the top 10 priorities for year one, I'm also having some discussions with the public library about establishing an infrared imaging camera borrowing program. And I've also started consultations with Algoma U and Sioux College to look at developing a local student energy chapter, all of which are actions identified in the plan. Further to this, on a municipal leadership side, I have conducted outreach to all city departments regarding certain actions that align with their portfolios. So planning, engineering, etc. And we're working on drafting an agenda for a corporate strategic planning session in the fall to look at how we can embed more of a climate action approach into municipal governance and leadership efforts. To that point, we're also in consultation with the city clerk's department to explore how adopting a climate lens could look as a part of council reports. Many municipalities across Ontario as well as Canada have done this in conjunction with their climate and/or energy plans. And I'm also working on developing an application form for the Green Initiatives Fund to ensure some consistency when reviewing projects. So when the committee receives applications, we will have a standard form that we can look at when we base when the committee bases their recommendations on what they go forward and fund rather. And last but not least, on the green space piece, with school being out for the summer, I have done some outreach to the school boards, hoping to hear back from them in September, as well as our post-secondary institutions about how we can move forward with an environmental stewardship activity, whether it is water conservation through Yellowfish Road, a tree plant, or possibly a pollinator garden. I'm also trying to encourage uptake in the Eco School Canada program locally as well, all in alignment with actions in the Ghg Reduction Plan. On the corporate side of things, so just a bit of a snapshot, if you will, on some of the actions taking place here at the city. Some of this is repetitive from other meetings, but it is nice to see it all in one space. On the tourism side, more on the active transportation front, there are mountain bike trails being built, as well as a non-motorized transportation kayak dock was installed. As you know, the plan is to go half electric for city buses by 2026. So up front, they're looking at one bus specifically for 2022, including a charger, as well as completing the infrastructure work for the facility. On a central administration side, we're looking at solar panel installations are planned for Huron Street in 2023. And at the John Rhodes Community Center right now, the arena bowls are being replaced with LED lighting. As well as the twin pad heat recovery unit is being explored for 2022. The John Rhodes heat recovery unit is being looked at for 2022. And when it comes to the twin pad, which is an exciting project for next year, I'm happy to announce that this project will really take a strong hold on incorporating energy efficiency equipment, such as LED lighting and a heat recovery project. On the waste side of things, there have been some changes made in the Community Development and Enterprise Services Department relating to purchasing packages to reduce single-use packaging material. As well, the city's biosolids management facility has requested expanding the scope to consider accepting municipal source separated organics as required by Ontario's food and organic waste policy. And the plastic-free pledge promotion and participation is something that the city landfill staff are hoping to encourage more once school is back into session. And as some of you may have seen as well on the planning side, it was approved at council this week to go to RFP for an active transportation master plan. And this committee will be part of the stakeholder consultations for that. And lastly, our economic development team, as part of their attraction efforts, are also working at attracting renewable energy companies to Sault Ste. Marie. So that is a very rapid update, lots of information there. That's it for this agenda item, Donna. I don't know if we want to turn to questions for this. We do have 20 minutes, I believe, for this. I'll leave it to you.
Absolutely. Really hoping that folks can perhaps we could go, I'm not sure the best way to do this, but if we want to go to flip back in the slides and go through section by section, or just in general, if people have questions. I know I have a couple, but please go ahead for anyone who wants to ask about that or have ideas around other things in each of those areas that we would like to suggest that Emily could be pursuing to help us achieve our target of 10% corporate and 5% community greenhouse gas reductions between 2020 and 2030. That's what we're here to make happen in this first, I guess, roughly 10 years of this plan. Anybody with questions, ideas? Andre, go ahead.
Emily, is there in the climate lens comment, I know that I've asked this before, are we going to be able to look at the official plan, the draft of the official plans, and put a climate lens on that?
It is the, there has been discussions to pursue that for sure. I think that that's been brought forward by this committee to the planning department, and we're still just trying to get some ideas on timelines for when the plan will be done. Travis, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Well, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I mean, I think our plan, as Emily stated, is we're going to have an organization take a look at that. We feel like it's the best use of their resources, and it'll allow for a comprehensive review in a timely manner. And then I think, I believe that planning is just considering that these proposals right now, and we'll be able to get back to you guys shortly.
Travis, I did look at the website of the people overlooking the plan, and I'm not sure, but it just seemed very superficial, and I just hope that when I look at they had a fairly good representation of experts, but when I look at the table, around the table here today, we also have a lot of expertise, and I certainly hope that we have an opportunity to provide feedback before it becomes finalized. That's because it's my concern, and I'm just not sure why we're not able to look at it sooner than later. That's my only concern.
I can add, Donna,
Thank you.
if possible, that there was a report that was brought to council on Monday from the planning department, and it had a timeline. So there's definitely opportunity for this group to provide input on that. So the timeline presented to council on Monday, there'll be a release of the official plan background report in September. And then there'll be community engagement on key policy directions from September to December this year. Then they'll draft or prepare the draft official plan. And then they'll release the full draft of the new official plan at City Council in January of 2022. And
Sorry, I was on a call. So
and then there'll be community engagement on that draft official plan from January to April. So there'll be a few kicks at the cat here as that document works through the process here. And we're hoping for the approval of the new official plan by City Council in May of 2022. So coming up this fall, we'll kick off a more intensive process to finalizing that OP official plan.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks.
So perhaps we could, Emily, could we put, would October, Tom, Travis, Emily, would October be a good of a meeting for us to be putting on our agenda? That would give time for people, I'm assuming by October, to be able to read and see the highlights of that plan. And then we could have a fulsome discussion in October, hopefully in person, about the recommendations there. And once we all see where the city's going, would that be, can we put a placeholder in for that?
Sure. Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. We'll have the background on the report for October, or sorry, the committee will be able to review and discuss in October. And then, then again, we'll have the draft of the full official plan in January, and the committee will be able to review that and discuss it then too. So it makes sense.
Okay, super. Other question, Andre, did you have anything additionally at this moment?
Not on this item, later on.
Okay, perfect. Anyone else with questions about Emily's update, just to give us we haven't had a chance to do that yet with Emily now at the table. So we're getting a very clear picture on what the actions are relevant to the plan that are currently in progress to help us achieve our goals or exceed our goals over the next 10 years. Are there other questions that anyone has? Go ahead, Pedro.
Some questions. Okay.
Absolutely.
Hi, Emily. Emily, thank you for the update. It's really nice to see this coming together and following the plan and all the work that you were able to accomplish in such a short period of time since you started. So my questions are around the active transportation master plan that will be developed. I sometimes sense, and I'm not sure if this is the case, that what we call active transportation we think about it as recreational or tied to tourism, and that was in the plan. I saw this was in the line item tourism, and I wonder how much does that plan. So my question is how much of that is tied to no greenhouse gas emissions transportation plan? And so we have these laneways for bicycles, but they may not be just for bicycles and active transportation, but for other vehicles as well. And tied to this comes public transportation. And you mentioned also buses and going half electric. And I see all this no greenhouse emissions transportation system, including these side lanes and public transportation all coming together because there are buses, there are these new scooters, there are companies that working as part of the city hall and elsewhere that are integrated into what's available. There's Uber, there's all sorts of other things that we do not currently have in Sault Ste. Marie. So my question is, how much of this master plan will include will be just active transportation, or is it way broader than that around how we rethink the city and the design of the city? Each road we retrofit, how does it look like to become a city of the future where people have alternatives to their personal vehicles, public and active and other electric options?
So the scope of work, in my understanding, for the plan is in the process of being finalized. And it's possible that, Travis or Tom could speak to that in more detail. I think some of these things that you're bringing forward, Pedro, will be assessed in the consultation process of the active transportation plan. Travis, I don't know if you want to add. I know you've been in touch with planning a little bit more than I have on this.
Yeah, absolutely. So Pedro, just to be clear, the active transportation plan is going to be looking at everything ranging from transit all the way through pedestrian mobility related issues and cycling. The primary purpose of the plan is, I think as Andre can attest to, I believe the last time we did a cycling plan update was back in, I think 2013 or maybe 2007. but it's time to refresh that plan. As you're well aware, we're looking at adding more active transportation networks, and trying to get people away from vehicular modes of transportation. Like most northern communities, we struggle with commuting without vehicles here. So we're looking to kind of add some new features that will perhaps assist with that, or at the very least on a recreational basis, give people the opportunity to access key areas, whether it be through walking or cycling. We're currently in the process right now. We've been accepted to phase 2 of a FedNor application where we're looking at expanding and this is, sorry, just to be clear, it's through Tourism Sault Ste. Marie, a trail network from the Hub Trail and Third Line all the way up through to Hiawatha, so people will be able to access that without having to drive up to that area. So I think it's a fairly comprehensive scope of work, and should align with the priorities here, with the full appreciation that there's a lot of work to be done, and even after this plan, there's a lot more to be done to transition people out of vehicular modes of transportation.
Thanks for that, Travis. And yeah, that sounds great. As you engage all the stakeholders, I think it's would be important to involve all the different grocery stores and commercial areas, so to enable more and more access, so people can use these laneways not just for tourists, but to actually go and do their everyday lives and things like that. But yeah, this is a great start. Thank you.
Thanks, Pedro. If I could, I just want to add, I have some notes sitting here in front of me that I was dealing with on Monday night when we were talking about at council, and we were talking about getting approval for that RFP for the plan. And my notes here say that things like, we know the community is extremely supportive and wanting more trails in our city. We know that there will be extensive public consultation that is part of this active transportation, comprehensive active transportation plan. We know that the intended timeline to have this completed by, from my recollection, was May of 2022, according to Mr. McConnell. And I have other notes here, like there's consideration for how we can have more four-season integrated mobility, pedestrian, cyclist, trails, accessibility, complete streets. So we're looking at a multi-season development approach, if you will, to active transportation for both recreation and for transportation in general. And the other thing, I think my last note here, and I did say this on Monday, I think that I mentioned that I'd be talking with my colleagues on city council, because in order for us to actually implement what I hope to see, but we won't know until next year, but what I hope to see are the recommendations and the ideas and the plans that come from this report that will be created, and obviously will, along with everyone in the community, will have an opportunity to comment and give their ideas. It's going to take a revolution, if you will, and a radical change in how we look at how we fund transportation in Sault Ste. Marie, from my opinion. We have to, and I hear some of the folks around the table here now inside my head when I say this, we have to put our money where our mouth is. And if we want more options, convenient, accessible, complete street options for folks to leave their cars at home or have a choice to not have a car and help us achieve our greenhouse gas reduction targets, we're going to have to spend our money differently. And we're going to have to make some upfront investments that will help us get there. So it's a combination of what's the plan and how are we going to fund it, and how is that going to align with our efforts to have a healthier community and achieve our greenhouse gas reduction targets. And the whole four-season thing is very exciting as well. Any other questions from anyone on Emily's report? Hi, Jamie, go ahead.
Hi, Emily, thanks for the presentation. Just two questions and well, one question, one comment. You talked about the biosolids management facilities, expanding the scope to consider separated organics as required under, I think, a refreshed Ontario food and organic waste policy. So does this mean essentially that the city does have to go down the route of providing composting services for residents?
Sault Ste. Marie does meet the population threshold for Northern Ontario to do that, yes.
Okay, so we can assume that that's just forthcoming. I think, as I recall, Travis, even in our planning session, that was one thing or one idea in one of our brainstorming things that came out of that. So it's interesting to see that this is a policy development that's pushing us in this direction. So that's great. I suppose there's no timeline on that.
2025.
There you
it's
go.
when it under the policy framework.
Okay. Very cool. Okay, and in terms of economic development, you know, working on attracting renewable energy companies to Sault Ste. Marie, I think that's great. Also, has there been consideration on attracting remote workers? Because right now we're seeing about 30% of Canadians will actually not return to their employer should hybrid working or remote working not be an option. So can you comment on anything like that? Is there opportunities to kind of target remote workers to bring in more tax base or more residents into the city?
I'll let Travis speak to that.
Yeah, Jamie, thanks for asking. We've been undertaking some pretty extensive marketing with respect to attracting new residents. Part of the focus is on remote workers, and from the results to date that we've been seeing and talking to individuals that have relocated to Sault Ste. Marie, we're starting to see it's hard to quantify all of it because it's really hard to pull the data out, but we are seeing an uptick in remote workers relocating to Sault Ste. Marie.
And I'm one of them, right? Like I'm a remote worker. So
and, I've heard that in my personal life as well. There's a number of people that I'm aware of that you know, had the opportunity to work remotely and have relocated either to Sault Ste. Marie or back to Sault Ste. Marie. So it's great to see.
Okay, thank you.
Just to further on that, in the plan, there actually is a small piece that speaks to looking at remote work in the future as an opportunity to reduce emissions. Even corporately, you look at cities like the city of Sudbury, for example, and they actually did go ahead and quantify, created some estimates rather on what the reduction from staff who worked from home during the previous lockdown waves of the pandemic equated to. And I know that they're exploring how this could become part of their new work situation, so to speak. So definitely something to keep in mind from an emission standpoint as well.
Anyone else with questions?
Can I I'll be quick. I just want to share.
Go ahead, Eric. We have lots of time. Go ahead.
Okay. I was just at Bellevue Park this morning and noticed, you know, all the industrial lawn maintenance machines running around, and it just made me kind of remember reading a study that had suggested that in the near future, the emissions from lawn maintenance equipment is actually going to, in some areas, exceed emissions from vehicles. I can't remember. I have to look back at where I had read that, but I think it's actually not hard to imagine, because there's a lot of pressure on car manufacturers to reduce emissions, and there's no pressure on, you know, like lawn equipment manufacturers to reduce emissions. So it just got me thinking, like, I'm not one to say that we shouldn't have lawns. I think lawns play an important role, but I also, and if they're managed properly, but I also think there might be room in the city plan to look more closely at emissions from that equipment. And I can't recall if there was that sort of level of assessment, but a couple ideas that come to mind might be, you know, like some of that beautiful lawn in Bellevue Park, if we converted some of that to pollinator garden and reduce the amount of area that was mowed, that might be a way to set an example for the community as well. And like I said, lawn, you don't want to lose lawn in parks. It is important to have lawn, but you know, you might be able to cut back, you know, even as much as 5 or 10% of that lawn space and turn it into pollinator garden with paths through it that people could still make use of that area. or, replacing the lawn equipment with alternative lower emission equipment. And there's problems that come with that, battery operated equipment too. But if reducing greenhouse gas emissions is a goal, then it does lend to that. So anyways, it's just a thought from walking through Bellevue Park this morning.
That's really interesting, Eric. I know I love my electric lawnmower. I've had it for a few years. I just love it. Emily, can you provide some comments about that? And maybe we could get those ideas along with everybody sharing great today. As usual, how we could proceed on something like that. It sounds like Pedro wants to add something there.
Yeah, I would like to add something to this. I think this is a very pertinent topic. As a runner through the city, I often experience what Eric just mentioned. And this is for seasons as well. The same goes with the snow blowers and all this equipment, and it's very tied to noise. And this is a sustainability committee as well. So not only this equipment sometimes is diesel or it has mixture, and like Eric mentioned, is equipment that has high greenhouse gas emissions and odors. It also, there's a lot of noise so the city has bylaws around noise, but as we read, this entire subject is something to look at as a whole, both the noise and this small, I'm not sure how to call it, this small maintenance equipment. And in the case of the city, in the case of corporate, it could actually be quite large. But it is a big topic. It's hard as a runner sometimes to go around town because of that, and also because of motorcycles. But I'll stop there.
Thanks, Pedro. Do you want to add anything there, Em?
Sure. So just a couple of points. So the scope of our community greenhouse gas emissions inventory, the transportation emissions did not look at off-road emissions. Our emissions inventory looked at vehicle kilometers traveled. We did consider looking at fuel consumption data purchased within Sault Ste. Marie. That information can be purchased. However, there's some liabilities with that data because you can't assume that all of that fuel that was purchased in Sault Ste. Marie was used here, right? It was maybe purchased here and then burned outside of the city limits. That being said, there are some communities who have gone ahead and other GHG emissions quantification methodologies that actually look at off-road transportation, and they take into consideration things like lawnmowers. In a community like Sault Ste. Marie, you'd also be looking at things like ATVs, boats, right? All of those pieces of equipment that use gasoline or diesel, right? So I can imagine that I can go ahead and do some research into that on what that would look like for us. But there is development being done, definitely. Electric lawnmowers, for example, even electric Sea-Doos. We actually saw a report for that last year. So there's definitely developments on that technology side. And from the piece that you brought forward, Eric, about pollinator gardens and grass, I know there is definitely interest on the environmental stewardship side of the plan, especially to bring youth involved for an activity to encourage things like tree planting and pollinator gardens. So I'm having some consultations, hopefully once school starts up, with the schools to look in how we could maybe pursue something like that for sure.
Awesome. I just have one quick question about your report, Emily, and then we're going to move on to discussing the IPCC report that came out on Monday. The retrofits that you referred to, I just was looking for some clarity and for the community as well. Are they the retrofit programs? Is this residential and commercial or just residential?
Are you referring to the webinar series that we'll be hosting in partnership with Garden River, or just about the programs in general?
I think it was about the programs in general that you were referring to, that we were going to be trying to get more information and communicate about for people to be, putting things. Yeah.
It's about both. So there's a variety. Currently, right now, the city does have a webpage devoted to energy incentive programs, both commercial and residential, available right now in Ontario, as well as there's one program, the Greener Homes Grant, that's available across Canada. So we're doing our best to keep that website up to date. And so the purpose of the energy efficiency campaign is to bring awareness to that, because we're aware that, maybe people aren't checking out the city website. So we'll be going to social media to ensure that we can have uptick in that. When you look at the plan, only 11% of homeowners, according to Enbridge, had taken advantage of their energy incentive programs. So there's opportunity to increase that, which is one of the reasons why we're moving forward with the campaign and the webinar series.
Okay, super. Right, if there's nothing further on Emily's report, let's move on to the next item 6 on the agenda, which is the IPCC report, which came out on Monday. I guess, serious news there. Emily, can you share the highlights of that? And then we're looking for the group to share any comments or thinking you have around that and how we should be absorbing it and acting on it as a city.
Absolutely. So I've gone ahead and shared my screen again, Donna. It's also in the agenda package. So as most of us know, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, did release their updated report on Monday. As a reminder, or for those who aren't aware, this report does draw on 14,000 scientific studies. And essentially, it is now 100% certain that we are observing changes in Earth's climate in every region, and many are unprecedented and irreversible, and it is caused by humans. Strong and sustained reductions of carbon dioxide and other GHGs would limit climate change. And new estimates from the report indicate that we could pass the global warming level of 1.5 degrees Celsius in the next decades, unless there are immediate, rapid, and large-scale reductions in emissions. And this is happening, the climate change is happening in many different regions, and this will see increases in further warming, so heat waves, fires, changes to wetness, dryness, wind, snow, ice, as well. Our coastal areas and oceans will be impacted. So this is a very robust report. But there is information in the report that says that, we do have a small window of opportunity to work to avoid that real triggering tipping point, if you will. So the press release and the full report are linked in the agenda package for those who do want to do more of a deep dive into that. Oh, Donna, we can't hear you. Or maybe that's just me. I'm not sure.
Oh, that's me. Too many.
No, you're good. You're good.
Buttons to press. So that was a really high level look at that report, and obviously the full report is available through your links, or you can find it online. I know that one of the things, not surprising, mind you, but it really struck me. And it was a quote from the report, and it said, every region on Earth is affected by climate change in multiple ways. Every region on Earth. So, we're all responsible for undertaking changes that are going to stop what's happening out there. And, we don't have a lot of time necessarily, as you stated. What's everyone's thoughts on what you read in the report, or things that you think are priorities that we should be focusing on to help us achieve our goals and or exceed our goals around that?
Donna, I think Ramaz had her hand up symbol there.
Oh, thank you so much, Tom. Hello, Ramaz. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Emily, for all the information and the reports and the presentations. It just struck me that with the urgency that has been scientifically backed up of the need for action and immediate action, we're still not acting as urgently and as rapidly as we could. For example, the composting program, you said maybe in 3 years we'll have it in Sault Ste. Marie, right? And there seemed to be a great appetite and will in the community for composting. So why aren't we, in the light of this report, are we looking at changes to expedite our response and to really take climate change more seriously, as Donna said earlier, put our money where our mouth is. As a community, as a corporate, as a city, I think more needs to be done. And I'm just interested to hear your thoughts about that, and sooner.
Absolutely. I think this report is a stark reminder, and that need for a sense of urgency. Absolutely. I know internally, if you take a look at the plan, it is a living document viewed to be, updated and amended as required, as technology changes, as opportunities, funding becomes available, et cetera. And so I think that when we do a review of the report, whether it's annually or every couple of years, these are things that will definitely have to be taken into consideration, especially with reports like this. And I think you're also going to see at the COP26 summit in Glasgow taking place later this year, probably some more sense of urgency and guidance from participating governments on how we can actually go about and do that. So I think we're definitely keeping that in mind. Tom, Travis, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, I would just add, I think that, from a senior management team perspective, we'll, discuss the IPCC report, and I think help to ensure everyone is, on the same page in terms of the urgency, and look at ways, to your point, Ramaz, that we can accelerate our efforts here as a municipality and take leadership in this area.
Jamie.
Yeah, I just want to make the comment about the 1.5 degrees Celsius warming level. Emily, maybe you could be best positioned to answer this, but in the city of Sault Ste. Marie's, the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Plan, when it comes to the actual amount that is the targets that are in the plan, are those aligned to keeping to that 1.5 degree commitment, or are they actually a bit higher?
The targets in our plan. So the preliminary targets were created based on looking at what was feasible based predominantly on outstanding retrofits within the corporate operations portfolio, as well as other opportunities from looking at converting buses to electric. That's specifically focused on that 10-year plan. The long-term plan of net zero by 2050, it was more established as, based on feedback from the community, an aspirational target at the time. But like I said, in the plan, it is recommended that the plan be revisited within 5 years to really hash out specifically how those targets are going to be achieved and most likely revised.
Has there been any thought to maybe working with an organization like the Science Based Target Initiative to be able to set targets to meet net zero by 2050 and have them validated? So to Ramaz's point, to know that we're working towards targets that meet or exceed that 1.5 degrees Celsius cap.
At this point in time, to my knowledge, there has been no discussion about that, but there absolutely is value in bringing that forward internally.
Okay.
Tom, Travis, I don't know if you have any other comments.
No, I think it's a good suggestion and something we should look at. So that's great.
Hey, Jamie,
Yeah.
did you have, was that your two questions?
Yeah, that was it. You bet.
Okay.
Thanks, Donna.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Pedro.
Yeah, so I was going to say that what this changed, this report from the IPCC changed, is that we now have scientific evidence that that threshold of 1.5 degrees will materialize probably earlier than 2050. And so if that's the case, that means we need to readjust our plans to meet those targets we established by zero, probably a lot earlier than that. So this is what it tells me right away, is that we will have to revise that. The other thing it tells us is that events like we had even yesterday in St. Joe's Island will become a lot more prevalent and frequent. So this means that we will have to, in our plans, to think about how do we mitigate risk We have to think we live in a city that has a high potential for flooding, although that's very well controlled in the way the city over the years has designed flood controls. But we also live in a city that is surrounded by forests. And when we see all these forest fires, we have to also think about how we design the city in a way that protects its citizens from what we know is a reality that will become more and more aggravated. So these are the main points that I think that we need to keep front. Yes, we need to contribute to reducing greenhouse gas emissions, but we also have to minimize risk and protect the citizens of the Soo.
Just to speak to that, I know that the city's emergency management coordinator team, they do participate in their HIRA assessment, so hazard identification risk assessment. And this is mandated by the province. I do have plans to reach out to them in September, that department specifically, to just get a sense on how these more extreme weather events are playing an impact into that, because adaptation is definitely a big part of this climate conversation, not only mitigation, speaking to the report as well, which is guaranteeing that these events are definitely going to become more intense. So it should be part of the city's plans. So hopefully they can speak to it better than I can, because that's their portfolio. Happy to report to the committee on that after I do that.
Thanks, Emily. Anyone else with questions or just comments to make on the IPCC report? We certainly, from your comments so far, we certainly have some things to take back and work on.
Donna, just one quick question. From a communication perspective with the citizens in the city, like, I don't know how much is out there about this IPCC report. Is there anything like that the city's planning on releasing about tying it back to our greenhouse gas reduction plan, anything like that?
Tom, Travis?
It's a good point, Jamie, and we haven't talked about it yet, but that's something we can take away and look into, because I think you're right. It's something we need to highlight and also connect with our plan. So we'll do that.
Thanks, Jamie. Bhavna, I saw a thumbs up, and was that in support of Jamie's question, or did you have something else you wanted to contribute here?
No, I was really supportive of what Jamie was saying. So it's
perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome. I just wanted to go back, actually, Bhavna, to something that you said about the composting program in 2025. And correct me if I'm wrong, Emily, but the 2025 date is based on the province's mandate, if you will, I guess, to put a composting program in place by then, but it does not mean that we have to wait till then. Do I understand that correctly?
It's my understanding that that is the date that the province is anticipating it to be implemented in Northern Ontario. In other regions in the province, there's a bit of a different timeline, but that's specific to Northern Ontario, yes.
Okay, but would that prevent us as a city from acting on that before that timeline?
Like everything else, I think, the cost, et cetera, would have to be considered. What that would look like to expedite. There's some planning, but other communities are doing it. So there really is no need to reinvent the wheel, but it would come down to cost, I think.
Okay. So once again, radically rethinking about how we spend our money, there's another thing we need to, perhaps look at prioritizing sooner than later. And it brings up one other thing for me that I've been thinking a lot about and working a little bit on, and it's along those same lines in terms of single-use plastics. And I know that the government has both federally, I think to a certain extent, but also provincially has put some timelines in place, but they're, by 2025, and the retail and the grocery stores that are out there are working on this 2025 idea. But, I'm hoping that as a community, we could come together and perhaps make that timeline work much faster. And that does not require investment necessarily on the city's part. That requires the passion and the initiative of stores, some of whom have already stopped using plastic bags. They've been removed from their inventory, and there are a number of them, but there are a lot more to go. And so hopefully we can encourage, as a community, we can encourage some of these businesses or all of these businesses to take this action that's going to be eventually mandated. But, you know, like, what are we waiting for? So that would be super to see happen.
Donna?
Yeah, go ahead, Andre.
Are we going to be talking about the Green Week at all? I have a comment to make, or are we meeting until 5?
We're going to get to that. We're going to get to that in a second, Andre.
Okay.
Okay. Tom, did you have something?
Donna, I was just going to add, at the council on Monday, Catherine Tato brought a report to council, it did talk about the source separate. I just went back to refresh myself here. The source, the organic waste, and the goal from the province. And so the engineering team, council approved. We did select SG Gore, company that's the preferred vendor to do the shop drawings and design. And that information then will be brought back to council in the future. And because we were looking at the biosolids and the organic waste, it's going to be kind of combined at the same time. So there is some progress being made on the design of that solution.
Awesome. Thanks, Tom. All right. If there's nothing further on IPCC or other related items, we're going to move on to the last few things on our agenda, which is next the Green Week, the Summer Student Green Week update or report. Em?
Yes, so this was included in your agenda package. It did provide a summary about how the Green Week went. Hopefully you've had a chance to read to it. If you have any specific questions, they probably would be best directed towards the summer student team. I'm happy to take those back. But if you have some comments, you know, feel free to share those.
Go ahead, Andre.
I like this one. Bike to Work Week was a complete and utter failure, with only 2 people biking to work the whole week, and both of them being Green Committee members. I laughed, and I'm not surprised. And I've said this before, and I don't understand. Well, there's a disconnect, right? We subsidize driving. We actually, the city pays, it costs $1,000 a year for a parking spot to maintain, and yet we punish people to ride bikes because we reward people to drive cars, and then we ask them not to drive when we're providing, financial incentives. So I said this before, Donna, I think it would be really good for you, perhaps as a councillor, to ask City Council to revisit the issue of paid parking on municipal parking lots, because we are talking about trying to have a shift in modal transportation choices, and yet we subsidize exactly what we're trying to get people to get away from. So at the very least, we should stop that subsidy, and parking is a big part of that, free parking for that matter. Free, it's not free, we're paying for it as taxpayers, and what we want people, we should be paying people to ride their bikes and not paying them to. So I think that council needs to address that, because it's a very powerful message for the community and other businesses. I sent the committee report on what some other cities are doing, where they're actually paying people to ride their bikes. And of course, they have paid parking. A modal shift occurs when their level of convenience shifts from one to the other. People make choices on transportation always toward what's most convenient. In our city, we are very much ingrained in truck culture. We have big trucks, we have four-wheelers, we have big boats, and we drive them everywhere, and we go fast. It's a real car culture, and if we don't smack that in the nose, we will not. We need to address that aggressively, and we need to do that at City Hall first and foremost, just to show the example. That's my comment.
Thank you, Andre. We're going to take that forward. Good thoughts, absolutely. Anyone else with comments or questions that on that report that Noah provided us with? Seeing none. We are almost at our ending time, and I think we have a couple of items left here as I scroll up. And one of them is, hold on. Oh gosh, I forget now. Oh, if I'm not, the next item was we provided for you the terms of reference and the Green Initiatives Fund outline, just just to bring it forward, to remind us of what our role is, what we're looking to accomplish, what the current criteria is around the fund. Emily mentioned that she had put together a formalized application for that, so that applications made by whomever, and remembering that anyone in the community, whether it's the municipality or the community itself, can apply to this fund under the criteria that are there. We're working to streamline that and create that application form that's going to help us make better decisions and prioritize the things that we want to spend money on. Emily, did you want to add anything on those two items?
No, I think that's perfect, Donna. The draft of this application form is just being reviewed internally, so hopefully we'll have it to share with the committee at the next meeting.
Perfect. All right. And then the last meeting, or the last item, sorry, on the agenda is about our meetings. Emily, take that one away. I
Sure.
know you know what we're looking to accomplish there.
Yep, no problem. So just, I know we're at time here for our meeting today, so just a couple of points. I'll be sending out an email with either a form or a poll, just to get an idea on some possible other times that might work for folks. These meetings tend to run a little bit lengthy, so we're also going to gauge some interest in extending these meetings to possibly 75 minutes, just to really ensure we can get within that time frame. And also just a couple of other administrative pieces that we wanted to discuss. Moving forward, if you have an idea or an article that you've read, please send it to myself specifically, and not the entire committee. Just we do have to follow the process and open meeting regulations. So an email to the entire committee would not meet that. So if you have an idea, please send it to me. I'll also be doing the call out for agenda items 2 weeks in advance. So that's a great place to share any ideas that you have. And again, just maybe take some time to review the terms of reference of the committee, and also the Green Initiatives Fund. And if there are some more questions about that, we can take them up at the next meeting. That's it.
Thank you. I think we're hoping that for the balance of this year at the minimum, so September through December, we would be able to settle on. So if we're in the second Thursday of the month at this point, can we set the second Thursday of the month for the balance of the year? Can we, what's the best way for us to get a little bit of extra time so that we don't feel rushed, and we can share our ideas with each other, get some really meaty things on our agenda so we can talk about them and debate them, and look at how they can help our priorities and help us achieve our goals. And I think Emily is going to be following through on that in terms of looking for how that could be, and if we're better to be trying to meet at midday or at the end of the day, and how could we get at least 75 minutes, perhaps 90, but somewhere between, around that, so that we're not rushing, and we're taking the time that's going to, help us get our work done.
Yeah.
Yes, Pedro.
Just a quick question. Any idea when we'll be able to start meeting face to face?
I'm going to look to Tom. I think I'm looking at Tom for that one.
Yeah, we're hopeful that we will be able to do that in September in the boardrooms with our meeting restrictions with this size of group. So fingers crossed.
Oh, perfect. Thanks.
Yeah. I don't know what the thinking is actually, because one way or another, whether you can attend in person or virtually, and I don't know where this is going to be very interesting to see, like where the world is going globally with this. Oh, now we're all used to meeting virtually. And so when we can go back into space and meet together, will we want to have the options for people to be able to join? Otherwise, I don't know what the city's thinking about that, or other organizations are thinking about that, but I'm sure that, that will come together, and we'll be looking forward to getting together again mid-September, I would say at this point. Does that make sense? Yes. Perfect. Anything else for today? I see nothing. Thank you very much, everyone, for your participation and your time. Thank you for your ideas and your passion for our goals. Thank you, Emily, for keeping us on track and reporting what we're doing. And see you in about 4 weeks, everyone.